out to Socrates. Socrates still trying to get the opening. Oh, Socrates! Whoa!
And there it is. The crazy gang have beaten the Culture Club.
Maggie Thatcher, can you hear me? Maggie Thatcher, your boys took a hell of a beating. Your boys took a hell of a beating.
Welcome to part 3. I was going to say part 2 then. It feels like it should be part 2, but it's not. It's part 3 because of the 1970 FA Cup final replay. Our 1970s Cup final odysseys is taking us to a very sunny day. Dave Bowler alongside me again. This I think I mentioned at the end of the replay. This is when I was part tongue in cheek saying that we were going to skip to the 1972 final next. We don't need to do that 71 final, do we? Dave? Yeah. I mean, the colour television, the first colour FA Cup final, 1968. Half in colour in a way. Yeah, BBC Two. Not many had colour televisions and wouldn't for many years to come. But this is the BBC Two covered the '68 Cup final in colour, while BBC One and ITV in a day when it really was wall to wall football, just 3 channels and all 3 of them showing exactly the same game. But BBC Two showed it in colour. But still monochrome colours though. West Brom in white, was it that day? Everton in a kind of mustard yellow, so not like a bright vivid yellow. 1969, you've got Leicester, I think, in white again. Manchester City in red and black stripes. So again, kind of monochrome-ish. 1970, it's white versus blue. So all very kind of like, but the 1971 final, it's the first one that is, although it's the 4th FA Cup final in colour film. Apart from those Pathé ones where we do get to see a bit of colour on the Pathé. 71. It's an FA Cup final very much made for colour television, Dave.
It's very vivid, isn't it? It's
hugely vivid.
It pings off the screen even now. It's we spoke a lot in the last one about Wembley being basically a beach. This is a beach in perfect condition, bright green shining out at you.
Yeah,
and you
have got the greenness of the pitch that you didn't have for the previous few seasons, which didn't help the colour television kind of like aspect of it. But this is different, isn't it, Dave?
Absolutely. And then you've got, as you said, the sun blazing down. You've got Liverpool in the red shirts, the bright yellow of Arsenal's, vivid contrast between them. And not just in the colours, actually. I mean, as we'll go on to during the game, Liverpool are wearing 1960s shirts and Arsenal are wearing 1980s shirts, basically. I mean, Liverpool, they've all got long sleeve. It's heavy cotton. Arsenal have got sort of the 1970 World Cup type shirts, haven't they? All in short sleeves, all look ready for this hot weather. It's the new world and the old world somehow. Even Ray Clemence has got a number on his shirt, So there's a sharp contrast between the two, which Bill Shankly was livid about later on in hindsight, but goes on to play a big part in this game.
Does indeed. A quick look at the road to Wembley, Dave, for both of these teams. Arsenal 3-0 against Yeovil Town in the 3rd round. Portsmouth take them to a replay, a 1-1 draw at Fratton Park. Arsenal labour somewhat, certainly on the scoreline, 3-2 at Highbury in the replay. A fantastic 2-1 victory away at Manchester City, not an easy thing to do at that point in time. In the 5th round, quarter-final 1-0 win at home to a promotion-chasing and promotion-attaining eventually Leicester City. In the quarterfinals, and then the semi-finals, Dave, they are seconds away from defeat at the hands of Stoke City. We are seconds away from this being Liverpool versus Stoke City in the FA Cup final of 1971.
Wouldn't that have been something? I mean, I watched quite a lot of that Arsenal run for a book I did ages ago. They're kind of an underrated team, actually, I think, that Arsenal side. I mean, 1971, it's very lucky Arsenal, boring Arsenal, all that kind of stuff. But, they played some decent football. John Radford came across to me as this fantastic player that again, is very much under the radar. He gets ignored kind of thing, but such hard work, a great quality, brilliant user of the ball, perfect centre forward, works great with Ray Kennedy up front. And then, as you say, they come to this Titanic semi-final with Stoke. that could very easily have gone. I mean, it came within seconds of going the wrong way, but it could have been even worse. I mean, at half time, they're behind. Just after half time, they're behind, and Bob Wilson makes a fantastic save. One of the Stoke players, I can't quite remember which one it was. I think it might be Terry Conroy. He's clean through. Wilson makes a fantastic save to keep him in the game. And then at the death, there's a corner, and Gordon Banks is penalised. And Gordon Banks, you always think of this comparatively mild-mannered character, goes absolutely ballistic at the referee when he awards the penalty. I mean, he's incandescent. Of course, penalties awarded, Arsenal get the draw, and away we go to a replay. And Bob Wilson, I spoke to him about this, and he said he went in the Stoke dressing room to get a pair of gloves signed for his son by Gordon Banks. And he said he came back into the Arsenal dressing room afterwards and said, "We've got this, because they are finished. They're on the floor in there. We'll win the replay," which, of course, they went on and did.
Yeah, I mean, we'll come to it further down the line, but shades of 77 with Liverpool versus Everton there. That one chance is out the window. It's hard for a team who's had Wembley snatched from the grasp to be able to pick themselves up for a replay. But yeah, Arsenal win the replay 2-0. Liverpool's run to the final, though. Round 3, a 1-0 victory at home to Jim Amelia's Aldershot. It's Swansea City 3-0 again at Anfield in the 4th round. Southampton 1-0 in the 5th round. It's again at home. Another home tie in the quarterfinals, though. It's a goal short Tottenham, so that does draw them away from the confines of Anfield for the replay. This is a Tottenham side that will go on to lift the League Cup this season. And Liverpool go to White Hart Lane and win 1-0. This is the big result for them en route to the last 4. But then this quite iconic FA Cup semi-final at Old Trafford between Liverpool and Everton that goes Liverpool's way from 1-0 down. Alan Ball opens the score, and you've got Alan Evans with the equaliser, and then this biblical cross that he puts in that it just defies all logic. From the left-hand side, he just kind of like back, almost on the touchline, back to the penalty area, closed in by his marker, and somehow he swivels and gets this outrageous cross into the penalty area that the Everton goalkeeper, Andy Rankin, flaps at. And it falls just very, very nicely for Brian Hall to prod home the winner. A game, that we've spoken of before, and we've had Paul McParlin involved as well, in just how pivotal of a tectonic plate on Merseyside that game is, because Everton are the league champions still at that point in time. They've got a couple of players missing, but they'd supplied 4 of Alf Ramsey's squad for the 1970 World Cup. It would have been 5 had Gordon West not turned round and said, "I'm not going to the World Cup, I'm not going to Mexico." And there were others on the periphery of that squad as well that were within the provisional squad that didn't make it. It was an Everton side that was full of players who'd been there and done it. It was a Liverpool side with players that will go there and do it, but hadn't been there yet. Tommy Smith, Ian Callaghan, Chris Lawler aside. That semi-final for Liverpool against Everton, there's so much drama in both of those semi-finals. Off the top of my head, I can't. 1990, Liverpool, Crystal Palace, Manchester United, Oldham. There's not many occasions when both semi-finals really, really deliver in the way that they have for 71.
No, absolutely. I mean, that Liverpool-Everton game. I mean, Everton at that point, having won the league and won it really well the previous season, they looked like they were going to be, a dominant force, didn't they, for the next, 5 years? Whatever.
They were all set up for it. And the thing is that it's just days before they've lost out in the European Cup quarter-final at hands of Panathinaikos, while Liverpool have knocked Bayern Munich out of the first cup. It's such a crossroads. It's unreal.
That's the game where Harry Catterick's ill, isn't he? And Shankly says they'd have to prop me up in my coffin to watch this game.
It is a hell of a crossroads, tectonic plates, shifting sands, whatever you want to call it. But
it is, because it's a brand new Liverpool.
It's fascinating.
Literally no time at all. I mean, yes. There was the previous season. There's the Watford game where they lose in the cup, and that triggers everything. And it is, as you said. I mean, you mentioned Chris Lawler, Ian Callaghan, Tommy Smith, and then the rest of the team is pretty much brand new. Really, it's a huge change in no time at all. And there they are at the FA Cup final with the next fella sitting in the crowd, Kevin Keegan, watching, having just signed up that week. The speed of that change to the quality that they get is remarkable, isn't it?
It is. It's breakneck speed. We'll come to a bit of that as we go further on. When it comes to kind of like the arc of these two sides by the time they get to the final, and just how much of a contribution it plays in the outcome. Maybe the two teams, Dave, Arsenal are at full strength. Peter Storey had been a fitness concern in the build up to the game. He'd taken a knock in
himself or Liverpool.
For both. He has foot in both camps in that respect. Raised and stood showing, shall we say. Peter Storey is quite fascinating. He does kind of, within this game, I mean, we say Eddie Kelly's number 12 for Arsenal in this. He was the one that had been deputising him in recent games. Peter Storey, he does throw himself around a little bit in this match in terms, it's almost like he's trying to audition for an FA Cup final that took place 12 months earlier in replay form at Old Trafford.
Yeah, he's also auditioning with the new Nobby Styles or something, I think. And Alf Ramsey went on and picked him on a regular basis. But, I mean, he's an unreconstructed 1960s footballer in terms of the midfield. I mean, he could play a bit as well, Peter Storey, but his role very much was they shall not pass, and under any circumstances whatsoever. He was the shield in front of the Arsenal defence, and that Arsenal defence was legendary, wasn't it? Even before the Tony Adams era of great Arsenal defenders, that back four was particularly solid at Arsenal. Pat Rice, Bob McNabb, Peter Simpson, Frank McClintock in there. I mean, that was a really powerful, and that was the basis for all their success that year. But Peter Storey put the fear of God into everybody, didn't he? In front of them. So he would, as you say, he would have been right at home in the previous year's final.
He certainly would have been. The Arsenal lineup in full: Bob Wilson, Pat Rice, Bob McNabb, Peter Storey, as mentioned, Frank McClintock, Peter Simpson, George Armstrong, George Graham, John Radford, Ray Kennedy, Charlie George, and Eddie Kelly's the substitutes. Charlie George 20, Ray Kennedy 19. There's youth and experience in this side. They've clinched the title on the Monday night prior to this. Ray Kennedy's header 2 minutes from the end at White Hart Lane. This Arsenal side, they finished in around about mid-table in 69-70, but along they'd come and swept to the title. But a huge marker for them was winning the first cup in 1970 on the back of defeats in League Cup finals in 68 and 69 to Leeds United, and shudderingly for them, third division Swindon Town in 69. But this is an Arsenal that is, I don't know, kind of like at the peak of that rolling storm, shall we say, of the late 1960s into the early 1970s for Arsenal. Unwittingly so, because like you say, similar to Everton, they have a team that looks, cut out and set for further successes to come. And they would remain relevant, certainly in the 2 seasons to come. But we'll come to it later, in terms of where the path would lead them. It wasn't quite to be, but at this point in time, Arsenal very much, on top of things, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, they've come from nowhere in league terms. As you say, that Fairs Cup, that was so crucial to turn the team into winners, because it was a tough game there, and they were struggling to get through to that final and stuff. But they kept going, and then they finally got it over the line. And I think psychologically that's such a big thing for football teams. When they win one, they can then go on and win 2 and 3 and 4 because they know how to do it. They know they can do it. It makes such a massive difference to them. And also, luck is not the right word. But I mean, in what other year would you expect Leeds United to lose at Colchester? I mean, that Bob Wilson said they were sat after that when that result came in, and they thought, "Hello, we've got a chance here." When Leeds went out of the competition, everybody thought we got a chance, and of course Leeds were going to win the league. And then there was the famous Jeff Astle goal at Elland Road and the riot and all of that, which cost Leeds the league. And on such things do doubles hinge. Really, it could have been very, very different. This could have been Leeds' double year in another universe. But Arsenal were there and they took advantage.
Yeah, they did. They really did. I mean, just looking at Arsenal and Leeds, head to head, and as far as the league's concerned, Arsenal took it by a point, finishing on 65 to Leeds 64. They both had a very, very, very similar goal average, goal difference. Arsenal scored 71 in the league that season, Leeds 72. Arsenal conceded 29 to Leeds 30. It was an incredibly close call between these two in 1970-71 as far as the league title is concerned.
Absolutely. And you've got to admire Arsenal, that final game, because obviously because of fixture pile-ups and whatnot, it didn't all end on Super Sunday at the end of the season, the way things do now. They went to Tottenham Hotspur, the last place on earth that you would want to go to win, to have to go and win the league. I think a 0-0 draw would have won them the league. A 1-1 draw would have cost them the league, because such was the vagaries of goal average. So when Ray Kennedy scored, it was great that they got the extra point. But at the same time, if they'd conceded in the last 2 or 3 minutes, they would have lost the league. So it was a very bizarre night. But to go to White Hart Lane in the heat of all that, and the place heaving, people locked out outside, all of that stuff, and to come through and to clinch that title, that is a big achievement. And I suppose as you come then to the cup final 5-6 days later, the question is, can they raise themselves again from that to go and win the cup? I remember Bob Wilson saying to me that they had a proper booze up after the game on the Monday night, and he didn't want to be involved in it really. So of course they were all roping him in. So he decided he went to the toilet, crawled out of the toilet window, and went home. So there's dedication to your art.
Excellent stuff. This Liverpool side, we say we've talked about Arsenal being on the crest of a wave and everything's flowing. This Liverpool side, we've intimated just how much of a work in progress it is. Shankly has picked 2/3 of the side that he had apart to create this new one. It's what's quite telling about this Liverpool side is that they have the meanest defence in the league. They've only conceded 24 all season, but scoring goals is a bit of an issue. 42 in the league, so only an average of 1 goal a game throughout the First Division campaign. It's a Liverpool side that I think it has more ambiguities going into the final over team selection as well. It's a slightly less settled side. It's settled in terms of you can kind of like guess the side that's going to be in the build up to it. There's only really one question mark over the selection, as this game builds up, and that's who will get the nod for the number 8 shirt, and that's down to Alan Evans or Peter Thompson. Alan Evans had played, obviously, in the 71 semi-final, as we've mentioned, to such massive effect, but his form took a bit of a nosedive after that, to the point that Shankly dropped him into the reserves for the final few league games of the season to try and get his form back together and give Peter Thompson games to get him fit to make him an alternative. Even down to 7 days earlier when Liverpool playing Southampton at Anfield, it's Peter Thompson who's playing, but it's Evans who gets the nod. The Liverpool lineup that day: Ray Clements, Chris Lawler, Alec Lindsay, Tommy Smith, Larry Lloyd. You've got Ian Callahan, Brian Hall, Emlyn Hughes, Steve Highway, John Toshak, and Alan Evans who gets the nod ahead of Peter Thompson. But such is the vagaries of this selection that with Thompson not getting the nod to start the game, there's no certainty that he gets a place on the bench, because FA Cup finals, one substitute. Many of the teams that go into these games will go with a utility player or the closest they have to a utility player to be number 12, and that is not Peter Thompson. This is a Liverpool side that has they've got Ian Ross at their disposal who can play defence and midfield. John McLaughlin, was heavily mooted to be number 12 in the build-up to this. Horace Yates in the Liverpool Daily Post certainly had pinned his badge, on his selection that it was going to be John McLaughlin. Ultimately, Shankly went with Thompson, maybe on the ambiguity that he wasn't sure if Alan Evans was the right choice after all for the starting lineup, Dave.
I think there's a lot in that. I mean, I made a note, we'll perhaps come on to a bit later on, but midway through, early in the second half, you look at all the players on the pitch and they're all confident, they're all quality players, and they're, however young they are, with Charlie George, Ray Kennedy are only kids as well, really. But they all look at home, and the one player who doesn't look at home on that pitch, for whatever reason, is Alan Evans. He doesn't look like he belongs. Now, it's a terrible thing to say about anybody, but he just doesn't seem to fit in there, does he, somehow? I mean, he was the £100,000 teenager, and as you say, crucial in that semi-final to get Liverpool through. Whether it was just form or what it was, but by the time of that final, he just looks out of place and nothing goes right for him really in the whole game. And so you can see why Shankly would maybe have left him out. But I suppose he's the closest thing to what will become Kevin Keegan the following season that he's got. Somebody who could play slightly off John Toshak. You know how Liverpool are going to play in terms of the forward line. I mean, John Toshak's going to win every header, and somebody's got to pick up the pieces. And again, Peter Thompson's not that kind of player, so you play Evans on that basis. But it's a gamble that doesn't work.
It is a gamble that doesn't work. Within that, Bobby Graham is another figure as well that's in that Liverpool squad who doesn't. He's got the number 12 on his back 7 days earlier at Anfield when Liverpool play Southampton on the last day of the season. Recently passed Bobby Graham. He's another unlucky one in this respect. A horrible broken ankle when he was at the peak of his powers as a Liverpool player. Never quite the same player after he came back. But another option that would have been there had Thompson started to throw him from the bench. In an alternative parallel universe, Dave.
It is amazing how much substitutions have changed the game. Now we talk about substitutes coming on as finishers and sealing the game and doing all kinds of things because you can put 5 of them on. That thing of only having the one substitute, even then was a new thing. Is 5-6 years old. That idea. You wanted to try and cover all the options, but then what if we're losing? We need somebody who can come on attack. But what if we're winning? We want somebody. Yeah, you can't win whatever you do with the substitute. And as you say, that's where the utility player really sort of came to the fore. It's quite an unusual decision to play Thompson rather than any of the others that you've mentioned. But I always feel for Peter Thompson because he's such a. He had a great career and all that, and he was such a Neely man as well in some senses. Missed out on Mexico in 1970. Shankly demanded the return home when Alfred left him out of the squad because he'd insulted him, he'd insulted his wife, he'd insulted Liverpool. He must come home. He didn't get to play much in '66, the Wingless Wonders, or that kind of stuff. So I feel a bit sorry for him, but actually plays really well when he comes on in this game. And
he does.
He very nearly is the difference in the game. So it's but it was such a conundrum, wasn't it? Who do you have as a substitute when you've only got one?
That ambiguity does Liverpool no favours in that respect. The team that finishes the final is far better than far better, more cohesive looking one than the team that starts the final for Liverpool. But within that, it's hard to say it's a mistake, but the choice made hasn't paid off. But within that, correcting that from the bench means that you already neutralise your substitute. So later in the game, when you've got Brian Hall, Emlyn Hughes collapsing through cramp, the value in that substitute, would have. But again, on the other hand, if this result turns out the same way and Alan Evans is sat in the stands, then that's a completely different trajectory of argument, Dave.
Absolutely, it is the wonders of hindsight. It's always easy to pick the substitute after the game, isn't it? But you can see why Evans played. He was in a team that wasn't scoring any goals. He was the most likely to find some. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely.
You have to go with it, don't you?
You do. As far as the coverage is concerned, BBC and ITV both covering this game as ever during the series. It's Kenneth Wolstenholme's last FA Cup final for the BBC. He will commentate on the European Cup final before he bows out, usurped in all he surveyed by David Coleman, the ambitious David Coleman, the legendary but undoubtedly ruthless and ambitious David Coleman. The whole vividness of this game and the colour and the greenness of the pitch, the redness of Liverpool, the bright yellow of Arsenal. Wolstenholme is back in track to this. It's such a strange thing in many respects because it's we're seeing the old mixed with the new. We've spoken in that respect with the kit and the commentary kind of like ticks that box as well.
Absolutely, he does. Fair play to him. He does the whole 2 hours without a summariser.
Yeah,
so he hasn't got a co-commentator, which that's a hell of a task to keep talking for right through the 2 hours. So fair play to him for that. But it's 15 minutes in before he mentions that Arsenal can do the double. Can you imagine that today? They would be talking about nothing else other than Arsenal doing the double if it was. It is a very it's a black and white commentary in a colour world now. great commentator as he was, things have obviously started to move on, and you can see why this is the last one that he does. But now, fair play doing 2 hours on your own.
Unreal. In the early exchange of the final, Liverpool are forcing the early pressure. Arsenal were giving away a spate of free kicks. If anything, Arsenal appear the more nervous of the two in the opening minutes, Dave. In a story, having mentioned Pete's story earlier on, we can all kind of we often see that footage of Vinnie Jones clattering into Steve McMahon at the 1988 final. There's a version of that in this one with Peter Story clattering into Steve Highway within the opening few seconds, Dave.
Yes, Peter Story's not a man who takes any prisoners, is he? It's just one of a string of fouls from Arsenal early on. I mean, that the first 10, 12 minutes, Liverpool, they're all over them, really, running at them. We pace Steve Highway in particular. He's causing difficulties for them, and they're not shy of sticking the boot in whenever is necessary. And it takes a while for Arsenal to settle into this, and I suppose that comes from having won the league on the Monday night. Although in a sense you've won something and that relieves the pressure, it ratchets it up, because obviously this is the double. The only team that's done the double in the 20th century is Tottenham. 10 years earlier, you want to emulate that. You want the double. You want to win the FA Cup. So there's a lot of pressure in amongst that, and as I say, it does take a while to settle. But when it does, I mean, it becomes a really decent game. Both good passing sides, with passing with pace and with a bit of purpose. Good width from Armstrong and Highway on either side. So it becomes a really decent game. After the first 15 minutes is a bit of a war from Arsenal's perspective, but then it really starts to flower after that.
It does. It does settle down into a more fluid match. There's a lot of endeavour, Dave, in that first half, but very few clear-cut chances. I've in my notes, I've got the first real chance. It comes via Brian Hall, where he somehow kind of puts Ray Kennedy in. An accidental assist almost, Dave.
Yeah, it's a terrible back pass that Kennedy's in on it, and Ray Clements, as ever, really quick off his line, forces Kennedy wide, and the chance is gone. I've written, I don't know how many times throughout this, Ray Clements off his line quickly, sweeping up. I mean, he turned that into an absolute art form, didn't it? The sweep keeper.
Yeah, he did. There's Chris Lawler averts more danger. Clements out of his goal to head off the line, to head away from Radford. Sweeper keeper example. That's what I've put in my notes there. As the first half starts to reach the midway stage, Arsenal are starting to kind of settle into their pattern, and they're dictating a bit more. We've had this bright Liverpool start. Arsenal a little bit kind of out of sorts, but by midway through the first half, it's Arsenal starting to exert the pressure more and more.
It is, and they are the ones creating bits and pieces of chances. I mean, John Radford, as I said earlier on, I mean, he's such a willing worker. He's all over the place, dragging defenders around with him. And Arsenal are just starting to get the ball into the box. There's one where Ray Clements claims a high ball, and Peter Story just runs straight into him while he's off the ground. I mean, there's no pretense about it, no trying to hide anything. It's just, I'm gonna get him. And Tommy Smith, as you can imagine, unimpressed.
He takes exception, doesn't he? He does take exception.
And then you see Bob Paisley come running on. You kind of forget about this, obviously, with all the things that Bob Paisley then went on to do. But he was the trainer as well. He comes on with his bucket and the sponge and soaps Ray Clements down. I mean, that itself is a remarkable throwback, isn't it? Somehow
it is a glorious thing. But yeah, Radford's getting more and more into it. There's a cross that he puts in. It's cleared by Lindsay. For a corner. You got Smith with a mistimed lunge, and Kennedy going in hard on Clements. So there is definitely kind of Bertie May has certainly identified Clements' adaptability in being a fifth defender there, and that this needs to be curtailed if possible.
I mean, again, it is the son of the previous year's final, nowhere near as brutal, obviously, but I mean, it's still, that physical element to it. There's no bookings across the game, and the referee, Mr. Burtonshaw, he loves to wave his arms around. He's very flamboyant, but never reaches for his pocket to take anybody's name.
He's forgotten he's left his notebook in the dressing room, hasn't he?
It's an aggressive game. It's they both really, the wicks turned up from both sides. They're both really aggressive and passionate about the game. The other thing is they all look so thin, don't they? There's none of that upper body work going on in the gym with any of these teams. I mean,
none of them look like heavyweight boxers. None of them look like heavyweight boxers. They all look a bit kind of like flyweight, maybe like middleweight. That's if in boxing terms, that's what we've got out there as players. Yeah, Liverpool. I wouldn't say they're rocking by any means of the imagination, but it's a fascinating final up to this point. It does settle down. That edge does eventually kind of abate somewhat. The heat will take a part in that as well. It takes a lot of energy to be aggressive. And it's an energy sapping day, Dave. Alec Lindsay is highly impressive in this game. I mean, Alec Lindsay, and think that erroneously disallowed goal from the 74 final, but he puts in an excellent performance for Liverpool in this one.
I always thought he was a really good player, Alec Lindsay. Very unlucky not to get more England caps than he did. I think he only got the one, didn't he, in the finish? He was a really good player for probably 4 or 5 years, wasn't he? And then he suddenly disappeared. When you thought he'd have another 3-4 seasons, but now he faded out and a really, really good player. And you got Chris Lawler on the other side, so it's a great fullback pairing that Liverpool have got, both able to get forward and supplement the attack. So it's well balanced in that sense. And as you say, it's a clever free kick on the edge of the box, and it's a low shot from Lindsay, and Wilson's at full stretch to push it behind. And that's probably just before that. There's been a good reflex save from Clements from an Armstrong header.
Yeah, very close.
And those really the two big chances, aren't they?
They are very much the two big chances of the first half. This header that Clements, it kind of it's saved, but it kind of half hits him almost, doesn't it? But he's got himself in the way of it, and they are the two big chances of the first half. I mean, Alec Lindsay, a point in reference of just how much transition Liverpool are going through during this 1970-71 season, and it goes from we mentioned it earlier on, that defeat in the quarter-final to Watford in 1969-70, and it rolls on through, and it's only the second half of the season really that this team starts to kind of truly come together. Alec Lindsay, as a point in reference, he's in the early exchange of the season, he's not in the side at all. He puts in a transfer request. So he goes from kind of like, out of the picture, not having a great time of a transfer request thrown in, to being kind of one of Liverpool's most potent players in the FA Cup final at the season's end. There's a tumultuousness about this, the way this Liverpool side has been dragged together. There's been this big bang moment of Watford in 1970, and then suddenly kind of eventually, here's a team clustering together.
And it speaks a lot about how different football was as well. There's Alec Lindsay. He's at Liverpool. How many better clubs are you going to get than Liverpool? There's only 3 or 4 teams in that same pool, aren't there, at that stage? And just because he's not playing, he puts in a transfer request. Now, that's not probably going to happen now. People will quite happily sit on that bench for the length of their contracts and, see what happens and take their money. And, they'll get games in the League Cup and the FA Cup, and they'll be on the 9-man bench and they'll be involved and all that sort of stuff. With just the one sub, that sort of thing didn't happen in those days. You were in the reserves and you wanted to play football. So, he would have quite happily gone to, for the sake of argument, Stoke, as he did later on, and played there in 1971 just to play every week rather than sit on the bench. It's such a different world, isn't it? And it must have been so difficult for managers to balance that up. Famously, Liverpool won the league with 14 players, of whom 2 played, about 3 games between them. And ultimately, the Villa did something fairly similar in 10, 15 years later, but Kenneth Walsnam can't stop telling us that George Armstrong has played 64 games this season. Now, there's no squad rotation, so you've only got a tiny squad. You've got to nurse them through all these ridiculous number of games, keep them happy, deal with the players who aren't playing. My God, that is a proper juggling act, isn't it, that those managers, Revy, Shankly, Busby, whoever it was in that period, they had to go through. It's an amazing piece of work.
It is. It really, really is. Half-time. Even-ish game. Liverpool have had the best of the opening exchanges. Arsenal have imposed themselves both physically and tactically as the half has gone on. And they've both had one notable chance. Just going back to that free kick as well. It's another... it's a great set piece that Liverpool do there that looks totally out of its space and time, really. The 1971 FA Cup final. Here is Liverpool in heavy cotton kits. Kenneth Wolstenholme on commentary. Arsenal in the Urtex. Looking a bit 1980s-ish. And then you've got this set piece free kick that Liverpool made that wouldn't look out of place in a game played last night.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays we're all lauding the set piece coaches, and we have people telling us how to take throw-ins and God knows else. Back then, you had a free kick and somebody belted it from 25 yards, and that was it. I mean, this is nicely worked and gives Alec Lindsay the opportunity and that little change in angle to get this low shot away, and he catches Bob Wilson, but unawares a little bit. And he makes a good save.
He makes a very good save,
and I think it's evidence of how, particularly that sort of third Shankly team is one that really does move the English game along quite significantly. It stops being I mean, up until then, a lot of English teams have been based on you had a great, 2 or 3 great attackers, and then the rest of everybody else filled in. And this becomes a proper team, and it starts thinking more, progressively. It takes influences from the continent much more than we've seen before. This is a very different kind of team that's evolving here, and ultimately that then dragged the rest of English football with it.
Indeed. But yeah, an entertaining first half, I think we could class that as. It's not the tentative first half that a lot of big games can be, even to this, in this day and age. Into the second half, I think Arsenal start stronger. I don't think there's any argument in that. They kind of pick up from where they left off at the end of the first half. Kennedy with a missed kick in front of goal is a huge let off for Liverpool.
I've got my notes. Kennedy must score, but somehow doesn't. I mean, he's what, about 5-6 yards out with the goal gaping, and you wonder if that's one of those ones that's going to come back to haunt him. Then Charlie Joy's onto a loose ball just outside the box and lashes one wide. He'd done something similar just towards the end of the first half from about 35 yards. He whacked one over the bar, and Liverpool, as we'll come to see, don't learn the lesson from that. And ultimately that's costly. And then Liverpool gradually start to come back into it a little bit. And there's one moment Steve Iwer puts in a great cross, and Toshak, a superb header, perfect knockdown. And the fella who should have been for, he's sitting in the stand because he's only just signed that week. I mean, that will be a Liverpool goal time and time and time again for the next 4 years. But Keegan hasn't quite arrived yet.
Yep, Keegan, is sat in the stand watching this and thinking, I'd have put that away. Without a shadow of a doubt. The game kind of settles into a little bit of shadow boxing for about 10-15 minutes after those 2 Arsenal chances earlier on in the second half. Peter Storey, clearly only 80% fit maybe. The ghost has given up on him after 63 minutes, and on comes Eddie Kelly. And then there's a Clements save from Radford, which is easy fodder for Clements. But then Liverpool reacting to the Arsenal change by bringing on Peter Thompson for Evans midway through the second half. Like you said earlier on, Evans just hasn't got into the game at all, which has resulted in Toshak being increasingly isolated. So Liverpool's best footballers come from the flanks. Alec Lindsay has been as left back a more effective attacking proposition than Alan Evans. And Alan Evans, this isn't a slight on the player he was. There was huge amounts of talent there, but there were caveats behind what was going on. He's the man who might have been Keegan, only for Keegan to come along and be Keegan. Liverpool looked much more like it after the introduction of Peter Thompson. Yeah,
I mean, he comes in and makes a real difference right from the outset. And with all the experience that he's got, you would expect that. I mean, just before he comes on, there's a glorious moment. John Radford plays in a cross that hits Larry Lloyd, and there's a brief call for handball. And Kenneth Wolstenholme says, "In case you thought that was a penalty, the ball must be intentionally played by the hand." My God, wouldn't it be good to have those days?
Wouldn't that be an outstanding thing? Wouldn't that be an outstanding thing? Bob Paisley's back on the pitch. We've got Emlyn Hughes with a busted nose, Dave. Princess Anne
from Tommy Smith.
from Tommy Smith. Princess Anne probably sat on from somewhere thinking, I'm going to be on a sports-related television quiz show with him one day. That lad.
I'll ask him about his nose.
There's something about him with a busted nose. It's the remainder of the second half, Dave. Again, you can see the game opening up because of that heat and what it's starting to do. Cramp kicks in for some players before the 90 minutes are over. This really is a punishing landscape for the players on the pitch.
Yeah, and then this is the point at which Arsenal's kit helps them out a bit, because it's obviously a lighter thing. Liverpool, all the Liverpool players, they're all in long sleeves. They haven't. I mean, it's not the heavy cotton with short sleeves. They're all long sleeve shirts, which they're desperately trying to roll up above the elbows. Like a bunch of blokes in a 1980s nightclub. I mean, they look weighed down by their shirts, and you can see the physical difference between the two. I mean, it's end to end stuff. It's actually a decent game without too many memorable chances ever popping up. There's some good football played. It's going on, but Liverpool are just starting to fade towards the end, aren't they? As you say, Emily News, who's everywhere, as Emily News always was, is flat out with cramp, and that's a bit of a signal, really. And I think Arsenal can feel at this point that if it goes to extra time, we might have a proper chance here.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, there's some good Liverpool movement at times. Hughes, Thompson, Highway are all linking excellently. There's points in time where Thompson and Highway are marauding down the same wing. Here we've got this bit of fluidity that was lacking for the first hour. So Liverpool have done okay within this game when Alan Evans has been on the pitch, but there is a greater fluidity with the introduction of Thompson. Lindsay skews on wide. We've got Arsenal on the break. Radford crosses from the right. Kennedy puts it narrowly wide at the near post. Although, I think we'd suggest that Clements has got that covered if it's on target. You've got Hughes with a perfectly timed tackle on Pat Rice in the penalty area as well. That has to be on point, Dave. That's one of those ones where he's committed, and if he doesn't get the ball, then there's a good chance he's giving a penalty away.
That is an absolutely glorious tackle, isn't it? I mean, it's you could show that to anybody now as a coaching video. It is exquisite the way he times that and gets the ball. I mean, as you say, otherwise it's a penalty all day long. But it's magnificent tackle from Emily News. Fantastic bit of football.
They really do. I mean, the last 15 minutes, I think we could say both teams are enjoying the upper hand in periods. There's counter punching going on. I think we've got here kind of like a bit of the front foot energy expounded. Let's just sit back and kind of like take a breather for both teams at this point in time. And then comes probably the best moment the closest moment of the second half, apart from the one that Ray Kennedy missed early in the second half. There's a long Arsenal throw flicked on by Graham, or it possibly flicks off Larry Lloyd, and it's onto Clements' crossbar. Acrobatically cleared, I've written in my notes, by Smith for a corner. It's John Radford. Again, John Radford being the danger there with the long throw. John Radford's excellent in this game. You mentioned him earlier, but he just seems a perpetual danger.
He's absolutely everywhere as well, isn't he? I mean, he's not an old-fashioned centre forward in the sense that he just wins his headers and all that. He's a modern centre forward. He's everywhere. He's leading the line. He's dragging defenders. He's linking up the play. He's coming deep. He's going wide. He's absolutely fantastic. And throughout that season, he was a magnificent player for Arsenal. Unfortunate not to get more England games again, like a lot of players that we've mentioned here. But again, they didn't give England caps out with cornflakes in them days.
Absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, he's fantastic in this game. I mean, from the resultant corner, there's another vague near miss for Arsenal, and at this point, you're looking at it and thinking if there's a late winner here, it's going to be Arsenal's. And given that they've clinched the title with 2 minutes to spare, give or take, with the vagaries of goal average, Arsenal's experience of big matches and big moments in big matches compared to Liverpool's is what looks likely to tell at this point in time. Certainly within the span of a prospective 90-minute FA Cup final and a late winner being scored.
And there's no going cagey in this game, is there? I mean, quite often you'll see in a final or a cup tie when that there's extra time to be played. The last 5 minutes, both sides will just say, okay, we'll settle for the extra time here. But both teams are still going for it. But as you say, Arsenal at this point have just got the edge. Kennedy's through again from Radford and shoots across the face of goal. But nobody's, as you said, the clearance off the line from Lindsay and hitting the bar. But there aren't really that many clear-cut chances, are there? There's good football, but good defending as well.
Even the one that clips the Liverpool bar, it kind of loops on, and I don't think there's any moment in the second half where you think that should be a goal or there's the moment. I think if Kennedy connects with that one early in the second half instead of miss-kicking it, then that's probably the one. But yeah, it's all very much, it's fine football. It's exciting stuff. It is end to end. Liverpool slightly on the ropes as the 90 minutes comes towards an end, but still counter-punching. Yeah, this is very much a kind of moving, kind of creating opportunities that aren't really fulfilled in a way.
It is, yeah. It's a nearly game in that sense, I suppose. It's not one that there are lots and lots of things you put on a highlights reel and one on Match of the Day or whatever. But there's good quality and it's an absorbing game. More than probably the crash bang wallop of the Chelsea Leeds both games the previous year. This is more one for the purist, Kenneth Worston.
Yeah, it is. That's what it is. I mean, there's a late Liverpool corner that causes Arsenal a little bit late anxiety. A Hall header is saved by Wilson, and that's it, Dave. Full time. We've got an extra 30 minutes. Kenneth Worston was informing us that should the game be level at 120 minutes, we're all off to Sheffield on Tuesday for the replay. And within 60 seconds or so of the game restarting, Liverpool 1-0 up, Dave. Wilson himself turns round. If only he could have done that a minute before the end of the 90. It's Steve Highway catches Wilson out at his knee. Wilson, both goalkeepers have been fantastic in this game. This is what has to be said as well as part of this being goals at 90 minutes. But he is caught out at his near post on this one. He's played in by Thompson. So that link between Thompson and Highway has proved fruitful there. That freedom of being able to drift in field as well. So it's not just a case of, all right, Highway down the right, Thompson down the left, or vice versa. On this occasion, it's kind of like Thompson moving into a central position, playing in Highway down the left, who cuts in and plants it in at the near post, Dave. 1-0.
Bob Wilson, I think it's John Toshak that just comes into the picture in the corner of his eye. As Steve always coming through, and obviously Wilson thinks, he's going to pull the ball back for him. I better move slightly to my left to cover that. There's no backlift from Steve Highway. He never looks like he's going to take a shot, but he just goes bang. He sees that little chink of light as Wilson shifts his balance and takes advantage of it straight away. I mean, it's a brilliant goal in that sense. It's opportunistic, but really clever, really intelligent. He's read what's going on. And he's picked his spot and fired it in. And as you say, 2 minutes earlier, we'd have been spared all of this. But it's a fine goal. And then from there, Liverpool are suddenly on top. And Bob Wilson makes a fantastic save from a Brian Hall volley. A Toshak knockdown that actually finds somebody.
Yeah, it does for pretty much the first time, really. Yeah, for 10 minutes, this is Liverpool's cup. It's their cup final for the next 10 minutes after the goal scored. Yeah, the pivot is Hall's turn and shot. That's saved by Wilson. If that goes 2-0, then I think it's fair to say Arsenal aren't winning that day. Whether they can come back and get back on level terms like they did against Stoke and take the game to a replay, but they're certainly not lifting the cup that day if Brian Hall scores that volley. No,
I think it's 2-0. It's finished. I think Liverpool go and win the cup at that point. But that's what Arsenal did all season. They're just on gone, and they found a way to win games, which is what the teams that go on and lift trophies, that's what they do, isn't it? Even on the days when perhaps they could have lost or things were going against them or they weren't at the best, they find a method of coming out on top. And that Wilson save was one of those moments. I mean, it's a brilliant save. It just about keeps Arsenal alive, and then they capitalise on it.
They do indeed. Liverpool, we said earlier on, they conceded on 24 league goals all season. They've got themselves ahead. Everything is playing into their hands at this point. But the equaliser it's very un-Liverpool in the way that this goal is conceded, Dave.
I saw that goal on the day. I was 7. I've been watching that goal for 54 years, on various programmes where it's popped up and on YouTube. I've still got no clue what happened, really. It's the most bizarre goal. I mean, John Radford flicks the ball into the box and somehow Emily Hughes and Tommy Smith kind of get in each other's way. And two blokes who are always ready to, there's none of the after you Claude about Emily Hughes and Tommy Smith, is there? But both of them wait for something to happen. And the ball, I don't know, does Kelly get on the end of it? Does Graham get a touch to it? Oh, God on, and then it squirms past Ray Clements. It's a goal that should have been stopped on about 5 different places on its way into the back of the net, and somehow it's in. Arsenal level. It is. I can't think of another goal like that Liverpool conceded in that period. It's just bizarre.
Yeah, it's totally out of character for Liverpool to concede a goal like that. Given how mean that defence has been all season long, it really is a peculiar one. But it just splits the game wide open once again. Back on level terms, there is 4 minutes of the first half of extra time to go. You've got Bradford who shoots from distance, but it's easily saved by Clements, and then it's half time and extra time, and everyone collapsed to the surface, to the turf, Dave.
It is remarkable, isn't it? I mean, it's a pandemic of cramp all over Wembley. Everybody is like, I mean, they're all so badly affected that there's nobody to actually massage their legs and get them back standing up, because they're all suffering with cramp. Brian Hall at one point, I'm not sure if it's at the break or during the game. I mean, he looks like he's been shot. The way he collapses to the, I mean, he looks like they're going to have to amputate his leg. The way he's writhing around. I mean, it's. This is as we said earlier. The previous year with the Wembley pitch looking like a beach was bizarre. But this is kind of what you think of as Wembley, isn't it? The perfect green pitch, the lush turf, all of that, and then the players all suffering like mad at the end with cramp. This is the prototype of that, and I suppose inevitably that then sort of infects the second half, because they can't raise a gallop of them, can they?
No, yeah, I mean, so many. I remember watching as a kid so many of these finals where the second half of extra time is kind of like, it's almost like watching a load of drunks. Stag tried to stagger home, or after a kind of like an enthusiastic Friday night down at the Dog and Duck. For many of them, it is just a case of to reach that finish line of the 120 minutes, and if someone, a mistake or a moment of genius to decide the game, and within this, it's a moment of genius rather than a mistake. That we can say there's kind of like a mistake in kind of like not being able to close down by the Liverpool defence, but I think the cotton shirts, the hot day that is. We have to call this a piece of genius, and certainly FA Cup iconography that decides the game.
How many more famous FA Cup moments other than Charlie George collapsing to the turf after? I mean, it comes from a Ray Clements kick out, it gets to the halfway line, it comes straight back. John Radford again involved in it, plays it into Charlie George, gives it in back, and then Radford, and again. That image of Radford from behind the camera is just become one of those things that is imprinted on your brain, isn't it? If you know your football from that era, and he just drifts inside a little bit, lays the ball off to Charlie George, and 20 yards out, he lashes it just inside the post, and fair play to Ray Clements. I mean, in terms of how the goal looks, the fact that Clements gives it everything to try and make the save, and he's in full flight as the ball goes past him. That makes the picture as well. Yeah, it's got all the elements that you want, as you say, for an iconic moment.
It ticks all the boxes in that respect, without a shadow of a doubt. It's the only chance of the second half of any massive note there. My notes. It's a Toshak header wide from a Lindsay cross, a tired shot wide from Kennedy, Hall's cramp attack, Smith with a timely tattle on Kennedy, Charlie George's goal. Chris Lawler shoots over the crossbar and automatically goes down with cramp. to which is absolutely brilliant. The Arsenal players come to Chris Lawler's aid and get him back into play. Just something that, one of those things that would never happen in contemporary football at that point in time. We've got Arsenal fans singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." Yeah, which is a strange one. I'd say always point these hours out on other podcasts. A Radford shot saved by Clements and a late corner for Liverpool that the Liverpool players are just too tired to even contest, as Wilson comes and collects it. And that's your lot, full time. Come the full time whistle, there is a lot of mutual respect, both on the pitch, on the touchline, and in the stands as well. There's strains of Liverpool being chanted by both teams as a lap of honour goes on. Before, and what's great as well at the end of this, Dave, is that there is no 3-hour wait for the trophy lift. All of the podiums. Let's set up the glitter cannons. Let's get all the corporate sponsors in. Let's cut away for adverts. It was literally kind of like full-time whistle, a few handshakes, dragging people up off the turf, up the steps you go, lift the trophy. Liverpool players straight behind the Arsenal players to collect the runners-up medals, down the steps, and the Liverpool players trotting around the dog track for the lap of honour to leave the stage for Arsenal to go around with the trophy. It's all done very, very quickly, very, very efficiently, Dave.
And properly.
And properly, yeah.
I mean, I know you just sound like a tedious old git, don't you, when you moan about these things, but I cannot for the life of me understand that when they decided that they were going to put Wembley back where Wembley was after they'd knocked it down, which that's a whole other argument. But, forgetting the Twin Towers, within Wembley there were two things that really mattered and that made Wembley Wembley. It was the long walk from out of the tunnel across the pitch, and then it was the Royal Box and the 39 steps up to the top. Everybody could see you. You didn't do this thing like you do now, where you disappear from view,
yeah,
and then appear again, and then where everybody is on the balcony and having to lift it together. And all of that stuff had the occasion. It had the sense of occasion, didn't it? That was what made Wembley special. It was that those two things were part of the culture, part of the game, part of the sport, and it contributed so much to all of these occasions. And they got rid of them. And now Wembley's the Emirates, isn't it?
It is.
Who cares?
Yeah, it's very much the uninspiring Meccano stadium, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm not saying that the old Wembley was all singing and all dancing.
That's falling down.
It was falling down, and it smelled of wee, heavily smelled of wee. But no, I'm mentioned with Stu Horsfield. It's kind of like that aura of Wembley that you have when you watch it on the television, and then you actually go, and it's kind of like, you never quite see it in the same way again. But that beyond all that long walk, the walk up the steps, and the captain lifts the cup. None of that passing it along the line. It's like just straight back down the steps, and then the rest of his teammates, they take over the trophy for the lap of honour and pass it around the players and do it all that way. Yeah, and then as the decade, big novelty hat, Kenny Dalglish in '86, seem to remember, and stuff like that. But a scarf that's draped around them as they walk up the steps and all that type of stuff. It is just an infinitely better era, a much subtler charm, shall we say.
I can't understand how they did not put that in as part of the brief for the architects. Right, we've got to have something that's on a par with this. Yeah.
The boxes that were ticked to make it such a special thing that the FA Cup final was back in its heyday. Moving away from the 71 FA Cup final and moving forward, Arsenal and Liverpool will both return to 1970s FA Cup finals. There's another 3 times that we'll see Arsenal before the decade is over in the FA Cup final. Liverpool will return twice. So these are 2 sides that will be familiar figures in the remainder of the series, Dave.
Absolutely, they will. The dominant cup fighting teams, I suppose. Never mind the league exploits. They were the dominant cup sides over the whole period, weren't they, of the 1970s? And you can see some of those elements within this game. Although they will both be very heavily changed by the middle of the decade.
They will indeed. But this is not the last we've heard of either of these sides as far as the 1970s and the FA Cup final goes. Dave, next up, we really do move on to 1972 for our next episode. No tongue-in-cheek on this one. Arsenal will return as holders. But it's after a series of near misses and hard luck stories from the mid-1960s onwards, it's finally going to be Leeds Day. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, the centenary FA Cup final.
The centenary final, indeed it is.
Programme with a sort of gold foil embossed cover. All very fancy. A glorious day.
Very fancy indeed. And that'll be an interesting one to look at. And in terms of, I don't know, Arsenal being, slightly unbalanced by the introduction of a high-priced acquisition from Everton, Dave.
Alan Ball's move managed to ruin 2 teams at once. This was some feat. As good a player as there was probably in England at the time.
Yeah, undoubtedly. It's such a peculiarity, isn't it?
Somehow disrupted what Arsenal did, which we'll come on to next time.
Yeah, Everton never get over the loss of him, really, in the years to come, the seasons to come. But yeah, for Arsenal, it's kind of like, it just totally unbalances that 1971 double winning side. Massively looking forward to it. Dave, thank you so much. The 71 final, such a vivid one. And made for colour television. Please do join us again next time when we'd look at 1972 and Don Revie finally, having his wicked way with the FA Cup. Thank you so much for listening. Do join us again next time.